black gold. They're drilling for it, processing it, and shipping it out as fast as they can through thousands of miles of pipeline. But this crude isn't from offshore wells. It's from the remote oil sands of Alberta. So remote, in fact, getting there to see it firsthand means landing on a private airstrip. Feels like the middle of nowhere. And even after landing, it's another 45 minutes by bus. In a television exclusive, Oklahoma-based Devon Energy granted CNBC unprecedented access to its oil sands project called Jackfish. It's beneath this isolated property that lays a massive reserve of thick oil, sand, and water, a combination officially called bitumen, more commonly called oil sand. What's the capacity for this facility?
The capacity of this facility is 35,000 barrels a day.
Cal Watson is Devon's general manager of thermal heavy oil. 15 years ago, we weren't getting any oil from the oil sands, right? What's happened?
So what's changed is technology has changed.
There is so much oil sand in Canada, it is second only to Saudi Arabia in proven reserves, 170 billion barrels. It's a lot closer to the United States and a part of the world much friendlier to the U.S. However, only 20% of the oil sand sits close enough to the surface for easy extraction.
In the past, mines were used to extract the bitumen that was close to surface, but 80% of the resource is far below the ground and not mineable.
Accessing the remaining 80% is a technological feat. Devon uses SAGD, or steam-assisted gravity drainage. That's a fancy way to say they use natural gas to create an enormous amount of extremely hot steam, and they pump it deep underground. The steam loosens the thick oil from the sand and makes it far more liquid. The oil then travels back up to the surface. When it comes to the plant's physical infrastructure, the steam-making facilities are actually much bigger than the oil production facilities.
The oil that we produce in here is bitumen. Bitumen is very viscous, so we have to use the steam to heat it up in order for it to flow. Otherwise, it won't flow to surface.
It's almost like melting it, no, to make it more liquid.
It is exactly like melting.
Boy, you need a lot of steam.
With a lot of oil.
And they will soon be making even more. Devon's Jackfish 2 project is set to be commissioned this year. And by 2020, the company estimates production at 200,000 barrels of crude per day. The oil well at the center of the disaster in the Gulf sits more than 5,000 feet underwater. But the wellheads needed for the Canadian oil sands sit right on the surface of the earth.
If we were to have the same type of catastrophic failure that they're having in the Gulf, we don't have that mile and a half of water that we have to work through to try and overcome in order to cap our wells.
Despite the ease of access to the wells, even Devon's president and CEO, John Richels, admits nothing is foolproof.
Accidents can always happen, but it's really the magnitude of the accidents and the impact that you have to look at. And as you look at the different things that can happen, if there is some kind of a leak, it can be contained very quickly. You know, pipelines have shut-off valves regularly, so you can isolate a problem if it ever does happen, and frankly, they're very rare.
With dozens of projects like Devon's Jackfish and new pipelines being built, including TransCanada's Keystone Pipeline, which begins shipping crude in June from Alberta to Illinois, Canadian oil sands are poised to become the #1 source of U.S. crude oil imports this year, according to energy expert Jim Burkhardt.
Oil sands last year produced about 1.3 million barrels of oil. If you go out 20 years, so by 2030, we could be getting anywhere from about 3 to 6 million barrels per day of oil from Canada.
Like offshore drilling, oil sand comes with controversy of its own. Environmentalists call the finished product high-impact oil. It affects land, water, and air due to greenhouse gas emissions, which are caused by the natural gas needed in the massive production of steam.
There are problems around oil sands development that aren't being addressed, and those problems are going to grow as development continues to expand.
But Devon's CEO says the company is constantly making improvements.
When you look at the amount of greenhouse gas emissions from a project Jackfish, it's comparable to oil that's imported from Venezuela to the U.S. It's better than the oil that's imported from Nigeria, and it's comparable to the heavy oil production right here in the United States.
This type of oil is also more costly to produce, roughly $12 per barrel compared to $10 for more traditional light sweet crude, according to Devon. But that hasn't deterred nearly 200 investors here at the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers annual oil investment symposium in Calgary. According to the group's representative, Janet Ansley, investments are coming from around the world, including $6.5 billion from China in the last 6 months.
The oil sands represent about half of the remaining investable oil in the world.
So this is it. This is what you've been working for.
This is the money shot.
The energy security America needs coming from friendly neighbors to the north.